Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, Ingenious Thinkers, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. So with me today is Luma Mufleh, author, speaker, and CEO and founding director of Fugees family. Welcome, Luma.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So Luma, whenever I prepare to speak to you, I listen to what you've said or read what you've written. And I think you're one of the most, I think you've moved me as much as any person I've ever met in my life, what you've overcome. And I think most importantly, how through all of the trials you've had in your life, you are about other people. You are about helping others. And if I can, I'd like to start with a little quote or a little excerpt from your book and maybe get your insight on that, because here you're speaking about your children. And I just thought that that was wonderful. So here's my reading. As I watch my children wolf down their pastries, I'm overwhelmed with all the things I need to tell them, what has shaped me and what has saved me, and how I found purpose, belonging, and home in the most unexpected places. This is what I want them to know. That said so much to me as a father, but what does that say to you as you write those words, as you think those words?
Our kids see us as a certain way, right? And they make assumptions about who we are and what we've been through, and we're these superheroes to them. Well, at least at that age. I think in the teen years that changes a little bit. But for me, it's like they had started asking some questions, about my family, about my past. And I wanted them to know all of it, like the good, the bad, the ugly. Like that's what shaped me. That's what made me who I am. And I didn't want to pretend it didn't happen. I didn't want to hide it. It's like tell them the story, obviously at age appropriate times, which parts of the story. But I think when people know or realize that you've been through all this hardship, they make assumptions about what kind of person you are, and that life must be so hard for you. But for me, it shaped me. It shaped me to be a better person, a kinder person, a stronger person. And I want them to know that life is going to be hard, and that's okay. You can get through it, and it'll make you better. If you've never struggled in your life, you're not gonna know what kind of person you are. You're not gonna know the strength of your character and your perseverance and your resilience.
Yeah, I think that word resilience is something that, well, I think it attaches to you in the strongest possible way. Just going to your past and just reminding, the listeners of your journey. One of the things you also said is it's hard to say goodbye when you don't want to go. So just tell us a little bit about, again, what you're leaving and how you came to the US. I mean, before all this, people know you now for Fugees and it's this breakthrough educational experience we'll talk about, but what led to that?
I grew up in Amman, Jordan. I'm gay and Muslim, and those things don't align. And I knew at a very young age that I would have to leave if I wanted to be who I am and to live true to myself. And so when I went to college, I knew that that was going to be the first step. I came to the United States for college, and then applied for asylum my senior year of college. But I still love Jordan. I still love the people there. They were my family. I don't know how much people know about Arab families, but they are strong, and they're the core of your identity. Like you are an extension of the main family, and we call each other by the relationship that we have. So, like, my dad calls me Baba, Baba's dad in Arabic. My mom calls me Mama. My uncle
Mhm.
calls me Khalo. It's we're and I had super strong relationships with my cousins and my uncles and aunts, and I knew that was all going to be gone.
And you leave that for a very different life here. I mean, starting out as a refugee, as you said, and the world taking a turn around a game of soccer that you saw.
Yeah, I mean, I think I grew up very privileged and well off in Jordan. I had everything. never had to worry about where my next meal came from, never had to worry about, I mean, we went on excessive vacations in the summer. Like I don't want to ignore that fact. And then came here, and then, you know, when I came out to my parents, they disowned me, and they had to figure out how to do everything here on my own. And it was this drive home from a grocery store in Clarkson, Georgia, and I made a wrong turn and ended up seeing these kids playing soccer in the streets of an apartment complex with rocks set up as goals and a raggedy soccer ball, and some of them were barefoot. And that reminded me of home, of growing up playing soccer with my brothers and cousins in the streets of Amman, and I wanted to play with them. I think if I hadn't gone through asylum, if I hadn't, you know, literally had the rug pulled from underneath me, I don't know if I would have stopped. I don't know if I would have been in that part of town. Yeah, so I think that it all happened for a reason. Um,
And you have this really interesting, yeah, I'll just say really interesting statement about, you know, if we open our borders, people will come in and adopt American values. And it just, it's wonderfully contrary to people being afraid of people coming in from other countries. And it just says, you know, if you want people to understand us and embrace us, open the door.
I mean, like I don't understand when people like there's I mean, I lived in Jordan and we were scared of, you know, refugees from Syria, refugees from Palestine, refugees from Iraq and Kuwait during the Gulf War. And we were so similar, right? We had similar language, similar faith, similar foods, similar cultures, but everybody's afraid of this other. Oh, we might become too much like them. And with America, is like people want to come here because of the freedoms and liberties and the values that America has. They're not trying to change it. I did not bring in the values and the practices that, you know, oppressed me. I embraced the ones that allowed me to flourish. And that's what it does. It's like I was attending a graduation at one of our schools, and all our seniors give speeches. And one of the girls was up there speaking, and she said, you know, when I first came here and we heard about America, we were told Americans hate us. She's a Mexican American young woman, I guess. And she's like, but here, you know, that was not true. Like everybody loves us, everybody treats us respectfully and takes care of us. And she loves it now, right? But if she was in an environment where she felt not valued, not understood, not embraced, then she would not have loved this country, right? And we need to create environments where people can bring their best selves and bring, you know, some of the great things from their home countries and cultures, and then embrace the values that are so uniquely American. Um, but the building walls and limiting immigration it's not going to do that.
Yeah, it's amazing too, because I mean, obviously, I'm in Canada, but I mean, obviously, our countries, most countries are built by immigrants over the generations. So I think that's a wonderful perspective. And what you've done is tell us about the school, the charter school that you've built, because it truly is unique, and it's a unique bridge now for those young kids who are coming to America, you know, to flourish and to gain
Yeah.
confidence.
So yeah, after you starting the soccer team, I ended up doing like after school kids, and then summer programming, and then eventually started a school. And this was after I realized one of my players couldn't read after being in this country for 3 to 4 years. His report cards had A's and B's. And that shook me, because my parents sent me to British and American schools growing up because they believed that was the best the world had to offer. So in my naive, idealistic self, I thought every school in the United States was like the State Department run school I went to. And I was wrong. That was not the case. And that was unfair. Like I wanted my players to have access to everything I had access to, the doors that were open to me because of my education. And so I started a school with 6 kids and 1 teacher in a church basement. And then we grew that and capped out around 96, 97 kids. It was a zero tuition private school. And then in 2018, we were invited to replicate our model because the data was so strong. And we ended up opening a school here in Columbus, Ohio, because of the vouchers that were offered here. And then pandemic hit, and that kind of shook us about what we wanted to do and needed to do. And so we launched a year-long study and codification of our practices, and we called it Project Teranga. And Teranga is a Senegalese word for hospitality, community, and belonging. And it's a project with us partnering with public school districts to implement our model. And at the same time, we converted our Georgia school to a charter. It was much more sustainable that way. And so in 2020, that converted. And then we partnered with a school district in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and launched our first Teranga Academy, and was extremely successful. And then we partnered with Mad River, Ohio, this past fall, and we're looking to add 4 to 5 partners now a year to do this work, because we believe that's what's going to set up students for success, a place where they belong, where they feel safe, where they start learning at their pace and at their level, and then can, integrate back into their high schools, being able to compete academically as with their peers. So.
And at the start of that, you said something about students getting A's and B's, but they were, to my understanding, not able to read or write English and still scoring A's and B's. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I mean, that's not just from, this was almost 20 years ago, but this is still happening today. You have kids who are passing, who don't know how to read and write, and I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can physically be in a school building, in a classroom, and one, either no one notice, or two, no one care. And those things are wrong. I mean, I had one of my first older students, I had younger teams, and then I had a U18 team. He, I was invited to his graduation. He was, had the honor cords, had a 4.2 GPA. That kid couldn't write a paragraph on his own. And he had to, he'd gotten accepted into college, but had to take a year of remediation to be able to perform at community college level. And that's just wrong. Like, what messages are we telling them? No, you're great. You're doing this great work, or here's how to navigate the system, or like, it's just unjust. It's cruel. And it scares me, because we look at other countries and how much stronger their education systems are. We should be worried. We should be really worried that other countries are educating their youth better than we are, because that's the future. And if we don't do a better job, our economy is going to be affected, our society will be affected. And I think either we're too arrogant, thinking, no, like, there's no way anybody can be as good as the United States, or we're, complacent, like, yeah, it's fine. It doesn't have to be great.
And just to clarify, these weren't just newcomers, were they? These were people in the traditional school system.
Yeah, I mean, the ones I've seen are kids who were born here, similar situations to the newcomer students. My focus is newcomer students, but you see it all over the US, where, I mean, you see the reading data. It was like 60% of students in 4th grade aren't on track to, and don't quote me on it because I need to find the exact statistic for you, but it's because they say if at 5th grade you're not, 5th or 3rd grade, because that's when we have the reading assessments, the majority of kids are not meeting that benchmark. And those are kids who have been in the school system since, pre-K, kids that were born here,
Right.
not newcomer kids. The data for newcomers is worse, and we're trying to change that trajectory for newcomer students.
And you're succeeding, to my knowledge. I mean, I apparently, again, and I don't know the statistic, you will know this one. But aren't your kids picking up about 2.3 years
Mhm.
for every year in terms of learning? What does that mean exactly?
So they're making 2.3 years of academic gain on average. So the typical student should make 1 year of growth a year. Our
Mhm.
students are making 2.3, 2.4, and they need to because they've got so much to catch up on, right? It's like, yeah, we're celebrating it, we're excited about it, but it's like if they don't do that, they're never going to be able to get
Right.
to grade level proficiency. And like we have small class sizes, we have a rigorous academic environment, we have high standards and expectations, and we know every kid and where they are and what we expect of them, and they live up to it. It's like you push kids, hey, I need you to get here. They get there, we're like, okay, now here. But if you say, okay, well, I need you to stay right here, they're going to stay right there. Like everybody needs the coach
Mhm.
or the adult that can motivate them to do better.
Well, and I think that's one of the most important things. And you actually said something that I thought was, well, another thing that I'll quote. Um, for all the black sheeps, you're the goat.
Yeah.
Um, and that just moved me because, as you said, so many people look, whether it's within an existing family or those who come over here and are, as you say, without getting political, they're, how can we let this many people in? We're scared of them or whatever. And they turn out to be these wonderful, incredible, bright, hardworking world changers.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we see the world differently. It's like for me, it's like I have this incredible opportunity to do things that I'd only dreamed about, and here I can actually do them and be the best version of myself and keep pushing myself. And there's so many opportunities that are available to me that weren't in the Middle East. And I think it's those who have been, pushed aside or not expected to succeed. And it's kind of like the underdog. You're like, yeah, okay, like discount me. I'm the black sheep. Nobody believes in me, but watch what I can do in the right environment. There's a lot of us out there that do that.
So why you? I mean, you've risen to from this this wonderful background originally to having nothing and coming here as an immigrant and as a refugee, excuse me, and building up. But so many people do what you have, and what you're doing with Fugees is just so remarkable. So, what do you think it is about you or your experience that has said I have to do this?
I think it's all of that combined. It's growing up in the Middle East, is seeing war all around me, seeing how we didn't take care of our people, like being part of upper class. And like we didn't have a middle class in Jordan back in the 80s and 90s. It was so, and even now I'd argue,
Mhm.
right? And so those who had access, and those who didn't did not. And then it was being in British and American schools and surrounded by people from all over the world and learning about their cultures. And like I remember the first time I had sushi and curry and a cucumber sandwich, like all those things like I wouldn't have been exposed to. And my best friend was Japanese, and then I had friends from Malaysia and Scotland and England, and it just makes you a better person. I used athletics to escape, and so that's why soccer is so core to the work that I do now. And then I think it was the applying for asylum and getting it, and then those first few years after that were really really difficult, but I wouldn't trade them for anything, because they gave me a whole new perspective on life and people and who sticks with you, who doesn't. And like I knew, I ended up in North Carolina. Long story, you'll have to read the book to know that part. But the woman that helped me then, like gave me a job at her diner, let me stay at her home. She was a Southern Baptist. And that's my first impression of being welcomed in by American, like after college. It's like it was her.
Mhm.
And I wish everyone had someone like her when they came here. someone that can take you in, that can laugh with you, that can help you with a job, that can explain things about this country, but also makes you feel safe and seen and loved. And that's the work that I do. It's super hard to leave your country. It's super hard to start somewhere, to leave family behind, to not know what the future holds here. And so if our work can make that a little bit easier, then we've done our job.
And you referred to your book. So it's not your first book. It's your most recent, From Here. Tell us a little bit about it then. And, once I've read it, what is my sort of emotional takeaway, if you will?
So it's a coming of age story growing up gay, Arab, and Muslim in Jordan. It tells a little bit of the story of my family, my mom's family, who fled Syria in the 1960s and then came to Jordan. It shows what growing up was like for me. In some ways, it was very idyllic. And then, coming here, going to college, what that was like, attending Smith College and meeting some of my closest friends there. And then the asylum process and being welcomed into this country and struggling for a while until I found my purpose. And it's targeted for a young adult audience, late teens, early 20s. And I feel like I wrote this, for my kids to know my story, also for my players to know my story. They didn't know it, and I think it's important for people to know that. It's an emotional roller coaster. It has you crying one chapter, then laughing out loud the next chapter, and because that's life. It's like it's a roller coaster, and it's also not very linear. So there's dips and spikes to everything. Also talks about what family is. And, I've since reconciled with my family in Jordan, and took a long time. And, we're better off for it now. And if other families can learn from our story, maybe they won't repeat our mistakes.
Well, it's a wonderful takeaway. So within the book, I mean, how do you get that message across to the next generation? I mean, it's not just about the book, it's about the academy, it's about everything you're doing for newcomers, but your messages are so universal.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that's why I wrote the books, is I wanted the message to go further out than our current community in the small niche world of education I work in, because a lot of what we do and my story, it is universal. It's applicable to everyone. I feel like from here, people will be like, "Oh, I'm not gay, I'm not Arab, I'm not Muslim, I can't relate." Like I'm not going to read the book, but the themes in the book are universal because they're about family and friendship and finding oneself. Um, and so, what are the universal themes that we can all gravitate toward, and find commonality instead of finding differences that push us away from each other? Because if we find the commonality, then we can learn about each other's differences, right? Um, and I don't know, like, I think the media thrives on sound bites that are provocative and divisive, and we're going to
Mhm.
see a lot more of that in this upcoming election, instead of finding, you know, people and places where that goes against what the message that they're saying. They're not interested in that. Like, we work in predominantly red states, and that's by intent, Georgia, Ohio, Kentucky, and that's by intent. Like, that's where the work needs to be. And what we found there is people are welcoming and love our community and want to learn about us. And we have the same values. We want to set kids up for success. And so I think, I don't know, Ken, I don't know how else we can get the word out other than by just doing our work.
Well, we will do whatever we can. And it's funny because you're talking about this book is not just about who you are, what you've experienced. And yesterday I just did a little pre-note on LinkedIn, and I said, because I listened to your South by Southwest as well, and I said that the story isn't just for educators or people like Luma, it's just for humans. It's just for human beings and to learn more about humanity. And I think how so many of us do live and how so many of us can live. So Luma, it's been an absolute pleasure again to speak with you. And Luma Mufleh, before we go, what does the future hold? I mean, you had this unbelievable grant, this $10 million grant. So obviously people are truly and tremendously believing in you and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we were lucky we received a $10 million grant from Mackenzie Scott. We also received a $4 million grant from the federal government, from the Department of Education. And it's a EIR grant, it's Education Innovation Research Grant. And it's a 4-year grant that we have an outside researcher that will study our model, our data, our partnerships, and it'll be for the next 10 partners that we have. So the future is finding other districts like Bowling Green, Kentucky, that will want to adopt this model and do the work necessary to make it successful. What I hope is in 15, 20 years from now, like it's Turanga academies are the norm and the gold standard for newcomers, and that our education system is better off because of it.
Well, Luma, thank you again. Luma Mufleh, CEO and founding director of Fugees Family, author, speaker, world changer. It's just such a pleasure speaking to you again.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.